Let's face it, we all face hurdles in some kind in life. The question is, are they stumbling blocks or stepping stones? According to Dr. Dravon James, the answer depends on whether or not you can find the peaceful space within the inner turmoil where you can admit to and honestly examine your obstacles. If you can do that, you can tackle them. But if you can't, they'll tackle you. Dr. Dravon James is the founder of Everyday Peace and the author of Freedom is Your Birthright. Her journey began in poverty on the south side of Chicago. Though she had always dreamt of a career on the stage, Dravon went on to earn a doctorate in pharmacy from Creighton University and has worked as a pharmacist all of her adult life. Along with her medical career and theatrical aspirations, Dravon has also always had a keen interest in personal development. But she's not without her struggles. At one time, her marriage hit the rocks, several of her pregnancies failed, her career took a tailspin for a time, and her health has been challenged. Yet, through it all, she has continued to follow her dreams and now teaches others to do the same. Dravon is now the happy mother of 2 teenagers, a wife of 23 years, a successful pharmacist, motivational speaker, author, and an actress, whose career credits include a recurring role on HBO's acclaimed The Wire, as well as several stage plays and independent films. She continues to inspire and teach what she knows to be the most effective tool for transforming, creating, and building a spectacular life. Tapping into everyday peace. Welcome to the Kicking It with Doree show. I am here with my first guest of the year, my first guest in like a whole year, Dr. Dravon James. Welcome to the show, Dravon.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. She is kicking off episode 101, the next 100 episodes. And it's so exciting because, as I just read, she has such a vast wealth of knowledge and experience from all over the place. She's super smart. She's a pharmacist. She's an actress. She's creative. There's so many things going on. And, here on Kicking It with Doree, we're always talking about bettering ourselves and our personal growth, our personal development. So we've got a big mixture that we can pull from with Ms. Dravon. So I want to first have you talk about a little bit about your background and how you became known as the everyday peacemaker.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for asking me that question. So I wanted to start, give you just the expedient version of me. When I was 17 years old, I was on my way to pharmacy school, and my brother, who's 13 months younger than me, gave me a book. And the book was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. It changed my life. Prior to that, I had been in church with my parents, studied, New Age truth, things of that nature with my mom. But when I read that book, I'd never heard the term inspirational speaker. I'd never heard the term motivational speaker, but I knew that I wanted to do something that would help people from the inside out. And I was going to pharmacy school, and I thought, that's great, but that's not it. This is it. Whatever that guy just did in that book for me, that's what I want to do. Fast forward 28 years plus the time to get the degree. All that time I was studying things about peace and just wanting to figure out like how to have what I thought at age 17 was a life without problems. But of course we know that doesn't exist. But what came out of that long journey was me discovering different parts of myself and different parts, things that I call universal truths. And I practiced pharmacy for 28 years. And then I finally got the courage somewhere in that 28 years, I'm still practicing, but towards the latter part of 28 years, I finally got the courage to start incorporating what I believe to be the truths about the universe and how we should live our life and have a peaceful journey. I didn't really have a name for what I thought I was going to call myself or my organization, but I started incorporating it in my pharmacy talks. I was a consultant and I'd go around and speak at different facilities about drug therapy. And at the end, I did this like 5 minutes of everyday peace. And it resonated with people. And then eventually someone invited me out to be a keynote speaker. And I thought, okay, well, they're inviting me out to talk about pharmacy. That's great. But when I got the call, they were like, we don't want to hear anything about pharmacy. We love you in that capacity, but we just want you to talk about that peace thing that you do at the end of your talks. And that was the beginning of it for me. I started doing that, incorporating it at the end of my talks. People started inviting me to functions to talk about it. And I thought it's really resonating with people. And that's what I really wanted. I really wanted to help people understand themselves better, understand how to create what I call a life of peace every day. And by the way, the definition that I use for peace is wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality. And that's kind of where I got started. 2015, I kicked it into high gear. I kicked it into high gear. My book came out. I started speaking on a larger scale. And I know, like I knew at age 17, that this is what I want to go around the world, teaching people how to live every day at peace. It makes such a big difference.
Absolutely, especially in the times that we're in right now where everyone is just so, uptight, angry, anything goes on social media. People are just kind of at their wits' end. Like that's the thing that a lot of people are missing is inner peace. Why do you think that is?
I think because we are so externally focused, like we are driven by what's going on in the media, what's going on in politics, what's going on the job, what's going on in the entertainment industry. It keeps us so busy, and it's no blame or condemnation or shame in that. It's just we don't spend even one quarter of that time focusing on what's going on inside of us. We are Our mood fluctuates on, what's going on in the traffic or what's going on with the person next door or the person that we never even met before on the television screen. So mostly it's because we don't spend time getting to know ourselves. And when we do that, it's so amazing. When you have this awesome relationship with yourself, you can just watch things happening and you can be an observer without having this huge fluctuation in how it really affects you. Which really doesn't. We just make it more than what it is.
hmm And sometimes people will do the opposite. It's kind of a good segue to the next thing I was going to ask. Sometimes people do the opposite where they pretend that things are okay or that they're better than they really let on. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of addressing disappointments that we might be dealing with that maybe we don't want other people to know or whatever.
Oh, yes. Suppression is never the answer. Ask me how I know. I did it for many years.
Yeah.
Right? So you always want to be that person, or I'll talk about my own self. I always wanted to be that person who saw the glass as half full. And that is a wonderful, wonderful way to approach life, but you can't approach it by not even looking at the glass. You know what I mean? You have to look at the situation and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. You got to give yourself time to be in that space and say, this is what's going on. This is how I feel about it. It's called acknowledging yourself and that's what I call it, acknowledging yourself and acknowledging the situation as it appears. Because if you don't, you're just trying to gloss over everything. You never deal with anything. It's still there. It's still inside of you and it's just piling and piling up. So the first thing I say to people is take off that mask first for yourself. Be truthful with yourself about how you feel and don't judge yourself for it. I'll give you this quick exercise that I do and I share with people when I speak. And it's so simple, but it was so hard in the beginning for me, was that I would just take a moment and I would say, Dravon, how are you feeling today? And I just wait. I would really just wait. And sometimes because I was this, suppressive kind of person without wanting to acknowledge what was going on, the answer would come back right away. Oh, I'm fine. Everything's great. And I'd say, no. And it's fine if it is great and everything's, but I just sit there and I just wait. And if I said everything was fine, everything was great, I asked, okay, well, what's going on? What's so great? And I'd ask these questions of myself and I start writing them down. And then what happened was I would discover what I always knew. There were things going on that were hurtful for me, that were very, very painful for me. And I would write it out and I would say, okay, all right, I see that. And let me just be honest. It wasn't always things that other people were doing to me in other situations. It was stuff that was inside of me too. You know, I acknowledged that stuff too. And then I would say to myself, after I get all that out, I would say, okay, I hear you. I understand and I love you. Woo, amazing, amazing what that will do for you. Amazing. It allows you to be more and more truthful with yourself and you just sort of get rid of that mask for yourself. That layer just falls off when you can, and it causes you that last, that part about, I hear you. I understand. and I love you. Reduces our fear, cortisol levels go down, and creativity comes up. So if we're dealing with stuff that we're trying to find solutions to, it helps us to calm down. That creative energy starts to flow and we can see our way more clearly. So I don't think that suppression is the same as having a positive attitude or a positive outlook. Unfortunately, it's the cheap way. You know what I mean? Without doing the work. It's the
Yeah.
cheap way. We'll say, oh, I don't want to deal with that. And that was me. Like in my book, Freedom is Your Birthright, I talked about that. Like I just never wanted to deal with anything that was negative or painful. I just didn't. If it was, I just wanted life to be okay all the time. And we all know life goes through hills and valleys, and sometimes you're on top of the world, and sometimes you feel like the world's on top of you. Either way, either way, even in those valley moments, you still can have peace every day. Developing that relationship with self is the foundation of that.
When you talk about not having to deal with negative things or not wanting to deal with negative things, I think everybody can relate. I think at first, or if you're a little less mature about what's going on, you might think or reason that if you don't deal with that issue, whether it's something internally within yourself that you're unhappy with or a situation with another person, if you don't deal with it, you can hope that maybe by me being quiet, it'll just go away. And I think it's one of those kind of what you would call a stumbling block. Like it's something that is hindering you, but I'm hoping it'll go away if I just keep quiet or if I don't have to address it, if I don't have to talk about it, if I don't want to confront either myself or that person. And so I want to explore this concept of what happens when you don't do anything, when you do nothing and just leave things as the status quo.
Oh, when you get, and that's, giving away your power because we are created to create. So when we decide that, you know what, I'm going to give away my power, I'm not going to do anything in here, I'm going to let something else come in and decide what happens with this issue in my life. You open yourself up to all sorts of things. And it goes back to that suppression thing because instead of dealing with it head on and taking control, not instead of taking it head on and saying, I see this issue and examining the issue from a standpoint of what is it in this issue? What is it in this particular issue that can be used as a stepping stone? It's an obstacle. It feels like an obstacle. What is it that can be used as a stepping stone to help me accomplish whatever it is I want to accomplish in my day, my week, my month, my life? So if we don't do that, if we don't look at it that way, that issue stays there and it creates a little fear pocket in us because fear is connected to suppression. When we're in a position that we have fear inside of us, it causes us to behave in ways that are in the opposite direction of our goals and our dreams. That's where we get all of this, anxiety. We get a lot of depression, just mood swings, things of that nature, because we're operating in fear. We got this thing that we have blinders on. We refuse to look to the left because it's over there and we don't want it to see us and we don't want to see it. And if we approach it straight on, we'll find that it isn't even as big as we thought it was. So it's a matter of pushing through and saying, I'm afraid to look at it. I'm afraid to deal with it. I'm afraid to approach it. But no matter what, I'm safe. Because once we accept that position, that we are safe, I'm safe to look at that issue. I'm safe to talk about that issue. It removes the fear or it reduces the fear component and allows us to once again become more creative in the solution so that now we're creating towards our goal. And that's what this whole thing is about. That's why I call it everyday peace because every day we have to do this. It's not like we get it done once and bam, I'm never going to have to deal with fear again. I'm never going to have to deal with an issue or be hesitant to deal with an issue that's uncomfortable. You'll become maybe less hesitant, but there will be things. There will be things, and you develop the technique of first accepting yourself, falling in love with yourself. And we can go through all those as we keep going. I'll just tell you what they are. But the
Yeah.
first one is, that first step is so important. I would tell you most people Most people are uncomfortable in their own skin because they don't know themselves. They're their biggest stranger.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to be kind of passive and just let things go by. I'm thinking about just this past Sunday, I went to a church I've never been to before. I was visiting, and the pastor said that there's some religious phrases that she just doesn't pay any mind to. There's this phrase that a lot of people say, like, I'll pray about it, or I'm just waiting on the Lord. And she said that's a really passive way to be. If you're just passive and just waiting for everything to resolve itself, that's not the way to live. You have to take action. You can't just accept everything that happens or accept the way that people treat you or what have you. So I'm thinking about that while you're talking about not being comfortable with yourself or not wanting to confront or wanting to blame something outside of yourself for where you're at.
Oh, that's what you just said about faith. A lot of times people do get, oh, I'm just waiting on the Lord. But faith is an action verb, right? It's action. It requires that, yes, you believe that you're part of the process. You're a part of the process for creating the results that you want. To sit, and I think too, like if we think about our lives are so important to us, at least they should be. How would we just leave it to somebody else to make all these decisions to decide, oh, this is going to be the thing that breaks you? No, it may not be. And if it is, I would like to have a hand in discovering that. And most likely
Mhm.
when we get in there and we really look at it and we say, okay, first of all, I love myself. I have a relationship with myself. I understand myself. I understand why this thing may be a trigger for me. I get that. But I know that I'm safe and I'm willing to take the first step, which is just looking at it and writing out the points about it. There's so many ways, that we could deal with it, but not dealing with it is what causes the stress, the depression, tired all the time. It's all of that avoidance. We've got to get rid of that.
Now, why do you think that common coping strategies for dealing with these stumbling blocks make people, tired, confused, overwhelmed, discouraged, depressed? Why is that? What are people doing to cope that is not working? Like, can you unpack that a little bit?
Yes. So one things and we've been talking about it is avoidance, right? We practice avoidance, which causes all this tiredness and anxiety because we know in the back of our mind it's still there. Whatever it is the thing that we're trying to avoid, it's still there. And when we practice avoidance, it leads us to feeling powerless, right? When we feel powerless, we get tired. We get become more anxious, more depressed, right? So it really goes back to the avoidance. And then to take it to a more physical realm is sometimes we have unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? We look at instead of dealing with our issues, it's drinking or taking drugs or overeating. Those things lead to more health issues, more emotional issues. Instead of saying this, and this is true for every goal that we ever have and every problem that we ever have, what I call the big three. Every goal that we ever have falls into one of three categories: health, wealth, or relationship. So thereby, every problem that we have is going to fall into one of those categories: health, wealth, or relationship. We look at the situation, say, okay, this is affecting, and sometimes one issue can affect multiple categories, but those are the categories. So we look at it and say, okay, in order for me to have peace in my life, wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality. In order for me to have that feeling in my life, I must have balance in those three categories: health, wealth, and relationship. In no particular order, that's just the categories that they are. So if I have a problem that shows up in my health category, and I sit and I obsess over that, and I obsess over that, and I obsess over that, I'm neglecting the other two categories, right? My relationship category, my wealth category. I'm just sitting there obsessing over that. And I'm obsessing even if I'm avoiding it. I'm not doing anything about it. They want me to work out, they want me to change my diet. I I'm not at a place where I can do that, but I'm still worried about it. So I put all of my energy into worrying slash trying to avoid this category and this issue in this particular category. But the other two categories, the wealth and the relationship, are also affected because they're getting neglected. I got imbalance everywhere. Imbalance everywhere. So there's one issue that if I had dealt with straight on, either follow the doctor's orders, do some research, get myself involved, and that way I can stay engaged in other parts of my life. But that's trying to avoid this one category, not looking and dealing with it straight on, has caused an imbalance, and that's where we get all this, cascade effect in our life. So yeah, and that's normally what we do. Instead of saying, I'm here, this issue is here, it showed up in my life. Let me take it head on, keep it in its category. It's a health issue. I'm still whole. I'm still here today. And we all know I'm a pharmacist for 28 years, so there's some health issues that can seem really heart wrenching. I understand that. I've had my own scares and health issues, but in the same token, I'm a whole person. And in this moment right here, I love this phrase. I got it from, I think it was Eckhart Tolle, who says, in this moment right now, I am safe. I'm whole. Not 5 minutes from here, not 5 minutes ago, remaining in this moment. Those techniques will help us not to have that cascade effect, the way we normally handle problems, what we call stumbling blocks in my world.
Yep. It's very calming because a lot of us are either living in the past or in the future, and that balance is what we strive for.
Yeah, we do. And it's so comforting sometimes, that escapism, because we go back to the past and we say, okay, remember the good old days. And we can't, those days are gone. Or we go to the future, but I know that a lot of times when we live in the past, we have a lot of depression. When we live in the future, we have a lot of anxiety. Oh my goodness, either those good old days are gone, or look how bad I was done back there. And we keep reliving that. And then, so that causes a lot of, just feeling down inside of ourselves. And then living in the future, well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And what if this and what if that and what if that, causes all that anxiety. Really, the place where we're most safe is the place that we're most powerful. And that's in the present moment. That's where we're whole. That's where we're complete.
Absolutely. In the present moment. So hard. You got to practice that. That is not something that, she's saying all of this and she's right. But if you've trained your mind to be a certain way for so long, it's not going to be instant that you will all of a sudden say, okay, I'm in the present. I'm in the present. That's why I really like the simplicity the exercise that you gave, because it's so simple. It's not like I have to memorize, a whole bunch of things. It's like it's simple. Anybody can do it, but you have to commit to it and you have to practice it, whether you're doing it in the mirror, whether you're doing it in the car at a red light, wherever you're doing it, you have to make that a daily practice and sometimes several times a day so that you can adopt that as your default mindset instead of allowing your mind to roam into the what ifs and the anxious thoughts.
Oh, you're right. I always say this is simple complex, because the exercises are very, very simple. The complex part is retraining ourselves to do this. And one of the things that really helps us stay in the present moment is what I call active gratitude. Active gratitude really, really helps. It's getting, saying what you're grateful for, in this moment, not what you're grateful for yesterday. What are you grateful for in this moment right here? And then pushing yourself to become engaged in that gratitude, where you get really, really excited about it. I have a radio program that comes on Unity online radio, on Mondays, and it was Monday morning. I woke up a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I woke up. Time my eyes open up, I usually write down whatever the first three things that pop in my mind. I get actively grateful for them. I write them on a little note card. That day, for some reason, blinking my eye popped in my head. I thought, well, I'm grateful to be able to blink. And I got really excited about that. And I thought, as I was taking my shower, what if I don't know all that blinking does for my body, but I can do this automatically. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to put on a to-do list. I don't have to pay a bill to be able to blink. I just blink, and I got so excited about that. Now, that active gratitude right there keeps me in the present moment. Not only does it do that for me, it has an added advantage of improving endorphins in my body. I get excited. So I this energy around me is elevated, and thereby my mood is elevated. I start drawing more like energy to myself, and that keeps me in the present moment. And it can be something as small as blinking. It could be something as big as, saving your marriage, or you still, whatever you want it to be. But getting actively engaged in something that you're grateful for and having that practice throughout the day. And I pick three things in the first thing in the morning, and I write them on a little note card. I get to my office and I just tape that little note card right in front of my computer there, so that if I get tempted to feel down, because stuff happens all day long to each and every one of us, I don't have to go back and think, what am I grateful for? I look right at that paper and say, oh, yeah, that's right. And I bring that energy up again. I really encourage people to try that. It's a really simple technique, but you'll be amazed at how wonderful you'll feel, how instantaneously you can change and reroute yourself so you can draw more positivity to you, more high energy. Because you know how you've heard people say, oh my gosh, I got out of bed, I hit my toe on the whatever on the nightstand, and my day just went downhill from there, right?
Hmm.
One more negative thing, because the energy is, you're creating. We create. That's what we do. We
Yeah.
create. We want to create on purpose.
Yeah. You could set your expectation to go either way, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and we want to, we want to be consciously creating, consciously creating.
Now, you mentioned a few moments ago your book, which is called Freedom is Your Birthright. It's a small, bite sized book where you teach us how to attain internal freedom, and that in turn leads to everyday peace. And I want to talk about something that you discuss in the book. It's 5 easy steps to turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones.
Yes, I love this part. You're right. It's a small book. It's less than 100 pages, and that's on purpose because I really want people to read the book. Use it as a reference book, and there's exercises in there that will help you. So I didn't want it to make it too big, and you wouldn't be able to go from cover to cover. This book is small, and you could read it in the afternoon. So the first thing we talked about is kind acceptance of you right now, the way you are today, not when you stop smoking, not when you stop cursing, not when you start going to church or managing your money better. Whoever you are right now, whatever you're doing in your life right now, no judgment, no condemnation, just kind acceptance of yourself in that moment. And remember, that goes back to asking yourself that question, how are you feeling? Waiting for the answer, and then really saying to yourself, I hear you, I understand, and I love you. That's the first thing, kind acceptance, turning a stumbling block into a stepping stone. The next is what I call finding gratitude in the eye of the storm. And of course, we talked about that. That's that active gratitude. Active gratitude. And I wanted to spend 1 second there because that's so important. Sometimes when we wake up in the morning, the first thing that's on our mind is the problem that we went to bed with at night. You know how that you wake up and you're like, you're filled with dread, and that happens to all of us. And so use that. I was going through something really terrible on my job a couple months ago, and I woke up and I just felt like, oh, it's such a terrible thing to happen. And in that moment, I said, well, I got to use this. I said, I'm grateful. I am grateful that that situation has not overpowered and taken my life. I'm still here today. That was it. And, I used that energy to go on through that. So that act of gratitude. The next is forgiveness. And I know that sounds so trite and banal, like, oh yeah, forgiveness. But forgiveness is so very important. It is so very powerful. And the first person you want to forgive is yourself. Because we all have these little things that I call, like, we're afraid to look at ourselves straight on because we remember when we missed an opportunity because of our attitude, or when we did this, or how we messed up on that. And we kind of treat ourselves as though we're the bad guy. When we're not. We're just the person who's trying to show up for ourselves every day and do the best that we can. So I encourage people every day to practice forgiveness of themselves, total forgiveness. And when you do that, organically you'll start being more gentle to the world. It's easier for you to forgive other people. And those obstacles that show up in your life, which are a lot of them are fear based, when you have this forgiving spirit, now you can creatively think about that in another way. You can see it from so many different avenues, and it just opens you up to creating a stepping stone from that stumbling block. And then there is setting an intention. And it really is in this order. That intention is so important, especially if you have an obstacle that you're dealing with in your life and you wake up and you're feeling heavy. And your intention should not be that I'm going to fret over this all day long. It should go back to your gratitude or to your acceptance of yourself or your forgiveness. You pick an intention. What is it that you intend to create today? And I tell people if they don't know, so mine today was I intend to create a powerful, productive, and peaceful day. That was powerfully productive and peaceful. So that was my intention for today. And I made sure that everything that I did lined up with that intention. Sometimes I've talked to people, I work with people, they're in so much emotional pain. It's like, I don't know what I intended. I'm scared. I'm this. I said, okay, well, let's stop right there. And let's say that you intend to feel safe today. You intend to feel safe. And of course, we know in order to feel safe, we have to stay in the present moment. Because in the past, we can remember all the fearful things that happened to us. And in the future, we don't know. So it creates a lot of anxiety. But you can say, I intend to feel safe today. Even though this obstacle, this stumbling block exists, I intend to feel safe today. Now, how can I do that? How can I feel safe today? What is it that I need to do? We need to change our focus. We put our focus on our act of gratitude. It sounds so elementary. I'm sure that people think, oh, this will never work. It will work. It will work. One of my act of gratitudes in the midst of all that stuff that's going on my job was blinking. So I would, my emotions would get revved up. I get nervous about what was going on. I looked down at my index card that was taped on my desk and I said, oh yeah. And I just would put my focus there and I would think to myself, that's going good for me. That's working for me right now. So, and it changes the energy. So that's step 4, setting an intention for how you intend to approach the world on that day. And then walking with purpose. You set the intention, you honor yourself, to make sure that all of your actions add up to that intention. So if your intention is I intend to feel safe, then no, you're not going to engage with a coworker about layoffs. That's not helping you feel safe.
No.
You're right. Right. There's some conversations we're not going to be able to have today, and that's not avoidance. That's not avoidance. That's creating. We're creating a space. I know that it's going on. I know that it's there, but I'm walking in my purpose today. I intend to create an environment that is powerful today, which means that was one of my things today, which means that when I get to the meeting, I'm going to have to participate. I'm going to have to sit fear down on the countertop and I'm going to have to participate because my intention for today was to have this powerful day. Doesn't mean you have to say something that's going to change the way the world operates. It just means that for you today, if you're a person that shies away from being in the midst of the conversation or shies away from conflict, I do a whole course on how to deal with conflict. It's amazing because it can be such a creative energy. So those are the 5 things that we have to do in order to turn a stumbling block, an obstacle, into a stepping stone. We got to know where we're stepping to. What is it that we want to create? And we start at the top by that kind acceptance of self, finding gratitude in the eye of the storm, forgiving ourselves first, which helps us to organically forgive others, setting an intention for the day. For the day. Let me just say this too. Sometimes you can only set an intention for an hour. You're just so emotionally revved up, and that's okay. In this hour, I intend to do this. That's okay. We're creating on purpose and then walking in that purpose.
That was excellent, Dravon. Please tell everyone where they can find you
So
to join you on this, quest to attain everyday peace and freedom.
wonderful. And I hope that everyone wants everyday peace in their life. So you can find me online. My website is www.drdravonjames.com. You can purchase the book on Amazon, which is Freedom is Your Birthright. And you can find me on all social media outlets. Well, the 3 that I'm big on is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I will be in Birmingham, Alabama, promoting a tour that I am on with 3 other amazing women called the Self Love Explosion Tour. So I'll be in Birmingham on February 23rd. So there'll be all the details about that tour are going to be on my website. Again, that's drdravonjames.com. We just finished up a tour in Sacramento, California, which was amazing. The women that came were just delighted, and they were really, their lives, I'm sure, were elevated from all the comments that we got from that. So the tour is focusing on a key ingredient, which is necessary to have a life where you turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones, which is self-love, and how to do that in a practical way and move forward in our lives. There's so many things holding us back, but they don't have to.
Perfect. I will also be linking to all of her information in the show notes for this episode. All right, Dravon, thank you for kicking it with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Send your questions and comments about this show to kickinit@DoreeAllen.com. That's KICKINIT, there's no G, at DoreeAllen.com. Or you can use Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter to get to me at Doree Allen.